The courtroom was ice cold. Tension made the air burn. Jasmine Crockett stood still, hands clasped, gaze locked on the jury. Her eyes didn't waver. Not once. The room was packed. Cameramen angled for a better shot. Reporters fumbled for record. Buttons! Spectators leaned forward, sensing something seismic. Then she spoke, and the world shifted. Donald Trump, she said, didn't just manipulate voters. He manipulated his own son. The words sliced through the room, like broken glass. One, jurors. Mouth fell open. A camera snapped, then another. Fingers tapped feverishly on keyboards. Phones came up. No one could afford to miss this moment. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her tone was razor sharp. Trump used his son, his image, his pain, his silence as a weapon. Prop. As political currency, someone in the back gasped. A legal aid dropped their pen, and just like that, courtroom wasn't just a courtroom. It was a battlefield. The judge struck the gavel, twice order, but the word barely registered, because in those few seconds, clip was already online. A live stream chat blinked to live commenters from every time zone lighting up. She really said that. Wait, did she just? Oh my God, the feed exploded. Inside, Crockett's voice stayed measured, focused. Lethal? This isn't conjecture, she said. It's documented. It's strategic. It's pattern-driven behavior. She pointed to a monitor. The screen flickered on, a still image. Trump and his son on stage, confetti falling. The crowd roaring, but the boy's eyes, they were empty. Frozen, used, the photo zoomed in, slowly grained. By grain, until only the child's face remained motionless. The silence in the courtroom wasn't just quiet, it was weight. Gravity, pressure. Trump's attorneys stiffened. Reporters whispered. The judge leaned forward, trying to get ahead of the unraveling storm, too late because Crockett was already walking the jury through it step by step. How rally schedules aligned with legal heat. How stories about the son surfaced when scandals hit their peak. How public sympathy was harvested, rebranded, and recycled. How pain became a press release. A juror rubbed his temples. Another stared at the floor. Trump's lawyers huddled, speaking in low tones, nervously watching the cameras. Crockett stopped in the center of the room. Let the weight of her words sink in. No theatrics, no yelling. Just truth, delivered like a scalpel. What kind of father? She asked, needs to shield himself with his child. What kind of man sells innocence for applause? No one answered. No one could. The gavel struck again, but it didn't matter. The moment had already escaped the walls. Outside, the courthouse steps buzzed with protesters and reporters. Inside the room, held its breath. Jasmine Crockett wasn't just prosecuting a man, she was prosecuting a legacy, and the country was watching. The screen dimmed, then lit up. Slowly a black slide. White text. September 2019, Ohio. Crockett stepped forward. Her voice steady, she began painting a timeline. Not of policy, not of poll numbers, of appearances, of staged moments, of one child, standing silently behind a father who couldn't stop talking. The first photo appeared. Trump on stage. A scandal brewing, and behind him his son. Small expression. It's unreadable. The crowd cheered. The photo cut. Another date. October 2019. Florida. A day after court documents leaked. There he was again, on a tarmac. Clutching his father's arm in the spotlight, flashbulbs. Reporters, then another, and another, each time. Just after controversy, Crockett's voice dropped. We're not looking at coincidence, she said. We're looking at choreography. Emails flashed. Next, staffers coordinating media angles. Advisors discussing public sympathy. Internal language, useful. Humanizing. Saturation point. One juror sat forward, its elbows on knees. Another scribbled furiously on a notepad. Then silence. File loaded. Crockett didn't speak. She didn't need to. The clip spoke for her. Never seen before. A leaked rehearsal video. Trump, preparing to walk. Out on stage, an aide asks if the boy should join him. Trump laughs. Tell them to give him a flag. Something looks better when he's holding something. The boy enters frame. Looks tired? Trump doesn't look back. Just nods. Yeah, he'll work. The clip ends. No sound in the courtroom. The silence was brutal. Sharp one juror blinked, lips parted, unsure how to react. The judge stared down unmoving, even the defense. Stopped shuffling their papers. Crockett stepped back to the podium. This is not about parenting style, she said. It's about pattern, about decision-making, about exploiting proximity. It's innocence on command. She displayed a chart, rallies, media, hits Bamley cameos. Each spike coincided with crisis, legal indictments, tax, leaks, investigations. Every time something went wrong, he wheeled out his son. Crockett looked at the jury. This wasn't optics. It was strategy. A reputation laundered in real time through the image of a child. She paused. The courtroom was frozen. What if it had been anyone else? She asked. What if this weren't a former president, just a man using his son as a human shield? Would we hesitate? Would we look away? Would we say it's politics, or would we call it what it is? Manipulation, calculated, cruel. The gavel didn't strike this time, even the judge understood interrupting this moment would feel like complicity, and outside, the internet had already caught fire. Clips reposted, voices divided, but one phrase dominated. Every headline, a father's shadow, and the child left standing inside it. The air cracked. Not with words, but with energy. The gallery stirred, then roared. Murmurs snapped into voices. Voices sharpened into arguments. A woman near the back stood up, shouting, "That's enough." Someone else shot back, "Let her speak." Security moved in. The judge raised a hand, but no one noticed inside the gallery. The storm had begun. Trump's attorneys leapt to their feet. Objection inflammatory irrelevant. The lead counsel pointed directly at Crockett. She's using the child as a weapon. This is political theater. Crockett didn't flinch. Her eyes never left the jury. This isn't theater, she said, her voice low and controlled. This is evidence. This is truth. The gallery spat back, half applauding, half booing. A man in a red tie shook his fist in the air. Outside, the chants rattled the courthouse windows. Shame, 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 on the courthouse steps. Signs waved under the hot sun. Children aren't shields, protect the innocent, prosecute the guilty supporters. Live streamed from their phones. Voices trembling with fury or faith. Some were crying, some were laughing, but no one was ignoring it. Inside, the judge slammed the gavel. Enough. One. More outbursts and the gallery will be cleared. He turned to both legal teams. You will proceed with respect. This courtroom is not a circus, but it was too late for respect, too late for order. The temperature in the room had shifted permanently. Even the bailiffs looked uneasy. One leaned toward the door, a hand on the radio. Crockett adjusted the mic slightly. Her tone remained surgical. Calculated rage, she said. It's not the same as spontaneous outrage. My words didn't cause this reaction. The truth did. Trump's lawyers hissed under their breath. Scrambling to reshuffle their strategy, they knew what this moment would look like in clips, in headlines. In history, a courtroom divided, a gallery erupting, a prosecutor refusing to back down. Crockett stepped back, slowly let the silence settle, let the cameras drink it in. One juror wiped their eyes. Another clenched their fists in their lap. The judge leaned back in his chair, watching her, studying her, measuring her. But Jasmine Crockett had no intention of blinking. Not now, not ever. Trump's lead attorney rose slowly like a man walking into war. He adjusted his cuffs, smoothed his tie, then turned to the jury with the calm of a practiced performer. Ladies and gentlemen, the kind of smile meant for headlines. The prosecution, he continued, has painted a picture, a cruel one, of a father, of a child, of exploitation. But you must ask yourselves, who's really exploiting whom? He turned, gestured toward Crockett. This is about 22-4. This is about power. And if dragging an innocent boy through the mud helps her climb one more rung on the political ladder, he paused. Let that speak for itself. Gasps rippled. A few people clapped. Others recoiled. The attorney walked to the center of the floor, voice calm, rehearsed. This isn't law. It's spectacle. It's media bait. It's opportunism wrapped in empathy. He turned toward Crockett. You don't get to weaponize a family and then call it justice. Crockett stepped forward, and the calm shattered with one hand. She reached into her binder, pulled out a sealed document unmarked. The judge raised an eyebrow. Trump's team stiffened. I was going to wait, she said, but let's talk about theater. She held it up. This memo was marked confidential. It was never meant to be seen. By this courtroom or the American people. She unfolded it. A page highlighted in red. Names blacked out. She read, Campaign Strategy Phase 3. Introduce humanizing element via family narrative. Consider child proximity during legal coverage spikes. Silence. A single breath echoed off the walls. Trump's attorney tried to interrupt. Your Honor, the judge held up a hand. Let her finish. Crockett kept going. Further down the page, focus group data confirms. Father-son optics, neutralize scandals. Boost base enthusiasm, distract press. She lowered the paper. The jury stared. One woman's eyes welled with tears. Crockett walked to the screen again. This isn't interpretation. This is planning, deliberate, targeted, ruthless. She let the paper drop onto the table like a stone into still water. Trump's lead counsel tried to recover. This is hearsay.
That document
Could have come from anywhere. But his voice was weaker now. He knew it. So did the jury. Crockett didn't speak. She simply tapped her laptop. The screen lit up. Again, one file. No title. Just 56 seconds. She looked at the judge. He gave a slow shh. Proceed. The lights dimmed, and the room inhaled together. Click. The video started, low quality, cell phone angle. Unreleased until now. Trump stood off stage, loosening his tie. Aides laughed in the background. He sipped water, then leaned into the mic joking. Guess they like me better when the kid's next to me, huh? More laughter. One aide muttered something about genuine moments. Trump smirked. Genuine. Now he weaponized sympathy. That's the game. He winked behind him. Just visible in frame was his son. Arms crossed. Expression blank. Eyes. Somewhere else, the clip ended. The room didn't move. No coughs, no whispers, nothing. Phones. Rose quietly, screens glowed. No one stopped them. No one dared. A woman in the front row covered her mouth. A man in the back whispered something. Like a prayer. The judge sat frozen. Crockett didn't move. She let the silence breathe. Let it grow. A juror wiped their cheek with the back of their hand. Another pressed their lips together so tightly. Turned white. Trump's lawyers didn't even stand. They didn't look at each other. They couldn't, because the silence that followed was not empty. It was full of everything no one had said for years, full of all the questions people had asked behind closed doors, full of everything that clip now confirmed. Crockett stepped forward. Just one sentence. This is not about a father protecting his child. This is about a man protecting himself at any cost, even especially his own son. She stepped back, and the room stayed quiet, because sometimes the loudest thing in the world is silence. The judge slammed the gavel. Order now. But there was no order left to call. Cameras pivoted. Reporters stood. Phones buzzed like alarms. Trump's lead attorney stood and barked, "This is a travesty. We demand a recess." He turned to the bench. "Your Honor, this entire trial has become a media circus. We need time. We need containment." Crockett stepped forward before the judge could speak. "You don't get to silence the truth just because it's inconvenient. The people are watching, and they deserve to see all of it." The courtroom murmured, then rumbled. One of Trump's junior attorneys stood up and walked out. briefcase in hand. No warning. It's gone. Another followed, shaking his head. This isn't what I signed up for. The judge raised his voice. Sit down, both teams. The courtroom doors flung open as press and bailiffs scrambled to manage the exits. Phones. Live-streamed everything. Inside the chat, thousands of comments poured in. She's not backing down. This is what justice looks like. He used his son, he said it himself. Shame, shame, shame. Within minutes, the hashtag 5-6 seconds of shame trended at #1 nationwide on cable news.
Anchors interrupted regular programming.
On Capitol Hill, aides whispered and gathered, and in the courtroom Trump sat motionless, pale, like someone watching a train wreck in slow motion. Crockett kept going. Her voice was even now, almost too calm. You asked for a recess? What you really want is a reset. But there is no reset for this. We can't rewind reality. Trump's remaining counsel pounded the desk, Your Honor. I must protest denied, said the judge. His voice was low, firm. This court will proceed. The people are watching. He turned back to Crockett. Continue. Trump's lead counsel leaned in, whispered something to him. Trump shook his head, then covered his mouth with one hand. The cameras caught it all. A man losing control, not of the courtroom, but of the story. And once you lose the story, you lose the war. Crockett nodded once and walked back to the evidence table. Behind her, the gallery buzzed with tension. Online, millions refreshed their screens, and everywhere on streets. In cafes, in living rooms across America, one word spread like wildfire. Shamed every major network cut away from their programming. Breaking. News flashed across every screen in America. The video had aired, the clip, the silence, the walkout, and now. Trump, storming out of a private exit. A camera caught him mid-stride. His face flushed, jaw clenched, jacket flung over one shoulder like a man escaping fire. Reporters chased. Microphones stretched, but he didn't speak. He didn't have to. The footage already had, inside the courtroom. Crockett stood at the bench, alone. No backup, no theatrics, just a binder. A truth, and the weight of millions watching her every breath. One reporter whispered from the gallery she flipped the entire narrative in under a minute. Someone else muttered, it's not a trial anymore, it's a reckoning. The judge leaned back, fingers tented beneath his chin. The silence returned, but it wasn't hollow. It was tense, alive, crackling with the weight of something irreversible. Crockett looked to the jury, then to the gallery, then up to the cameras, perched above the exits. Let me be clear, this isn't about Democrat or Republican. This is about a child. Being used as armor by a man who knew exactly what he was doing. She held up the memo again. She tapped the printed quote, weaponize. Sympathy. You don't use your own son to cover your own shame. Not in this courtroom, not in this country. She paused, let the air grow heavy. This court is not. It's judging a man, it's judging what we tolerate from power. It's judging what kind of nation we want to be when. No one is watching, except today everyone is. The jury didn't blink. The judge said nothing. The cameras stayed fixed. And in that moment, Jasmine Crockett wasn't just a congresswoman or a prosecutor or even an adversary. She became a force. The courtroom wasn't just a courtroom anymore. It was a crucible, and truth hard. Sharp, inconvenient truth was burning through the walls. And she wasn't done. Behind the sealed oak doors of the judge's chambers, voices clashed in low, urgent tones. Trump's remaining attorneys sat rigid, faces tight, whispers like knives. An emergency consultation had been called off record. But nothing was off record. Anymore, not really. The 56-second clip had detonated beyond the courtroom. Donors were panicking. Operatives were scrambling. Phones buzzed across D.C. like a city under siege. The judge leaned forward. Elbows on the desk. You've ignited something dangerous, he said quietly. Crockett didn't flinch. The truth is dangerous when it's been buried too long. One of Trump's counsel stood. We're considering filing for a mistrial. Crockett raised an eyebrow. On what grounds reality? The judge raised a hand. That's enough. He turned to Crockett. Congresswoman, your conduct walks a very fine line. Your tone, your media timing, your evidence strategy. There are rules to the theater of law. Crockett met his gaze head on. Then maybe the problem isn't me. Maybe it's the theater, the judge exhaled. Slow, heavy. The courtroom is not your personal stage. She stepped closer. With respect, Your Honor, it stopped being a courtroom the moment the public realized the game being played. This isn't a script. This is a mirror, and some people don't like what they see. There was a pause. Then Trump's attorney spoke again, voice lower now. This is setting precedent, dangerous precedent. Dragging a man's child into a political circus, Crockett. Cut him off. Don't use the word child, like he's off limits. Not after Trump himself dragged him into rallies, into commercials, into pity. And then laughed about it. The judge folded his hands. Crockett, one last time. Tone it down, or I'll have no choice but to issue formal sanctions. She didn't blink. You can scold the tone, Your Honor, but you can't unsee the truth. Not after that. The room fell still. The kind of stillness that says a line has been drawn and crossed. When the door reopened, the bailiff looked rattled. Camera crews pressed forward, but Crockett walked out alone. Head high, breath steady. One reporter leaned toward her as she passed. Are you afraid of being sanctioned? She didn't stop, only if silence is safer than the truth. And I didn't come here to be safe. She turned the corner and vanished down the hallway while behind her. Systems shook, because when backroom power meets daylight, one of them has to give. The statement dropped quietly. No press conference, no camera crew, just a PDF, posted online by a spokesperson. Signed by Trump's son. 6 sentences. Cold. Distant. I have no comment on the ongoing proceedings. I was present at events cited by the court. I do not wish to be involved in any political commentary. Please respect my privacy. I ask for space at this time. That is all. There was no denial, no defense, no warmth. The statement spread like wildfire across social media. Screenshots. TikTok side-by-sides with the courtroom clip. The one where he stood behind his father, blank, motionless, like a ghost, inside the courtroom. Crockett stood to deliver closing remarks. She held up the printed statement. She didn't read it aloud. She didn't have to. You saw him. You heard his father's words, and now you've read what he had to say. She looked at the jury. Her voice didn't rise, didn't shake. Even he knows what happened. The courtroom was still. Jurors sat forward, hands clasped, brows furrowed, eyes wide. No one blinked. Crockett stepped back from the bench. She didn't linger. She didn't gloat. She just let the silence speak for itself. Because in that courtroom and across the country, one thing had become unmistakably clear. The loudest statement was silence. She returned to the center of the room slowly. No binder this time. No stack of documents. Just one sheet of paper. She stood still, letting the tension breathe. Letting the silence gather. Every camera light turned red. Every juror leaned in. The world was watching. This isn't about politics. It never. Her voice was calm, controlled, deadly. It's about power, abused, misused, sold to the highest bidder. She held up the final exhibit. A creased, time-worn page. Black ink. Tight handwriting. Not a legal brief. Not a memo. Not a headline. A diary entry. She didn't say whose. Not yet. She read, sometimes I think he only sees me when there's a camera around. When the crowd cheers, I'm a prop. When they don't, I disappear. I smile because I'm supposed to, but none of this feels like it's mine. She stopped. No sound in the gallery, not even a breath. She looked to the jury. That's not a statement. From an enemy or a critic or a political rival. That's the voice of a child trying to figure out where his father ends and where the game begins. She turned the page outward. This isn't my accusation. It's his confession. And whether or not you wanted to see it, you've seen it now. She walked to the bench, handed the page to the court clerk. Every step echoed. She stood still again. In this courtroom and in this country, power doesn't protect you. Truth does. And when the powerful fear the truth, they hide behind there. Children, she took one breath, and that is the final blow. She stepped. Silence. The jury didn't move. The judge didn't speak. Cameras panned. Phones VIBR, a TED, somewhere outside. A protester began to cry. Not out of rage. Not out of joy. Out of something heavier. A shared ache. A national reckoning. And inside that courtroom you could feel it. Something had ended, and something else unspoken. Unavoidable. Louder than any verdict had already begun. Outside the courthouse, floodlights cut through the dusk. News anchors spoke into windblown microphones. Replays ran on every screen. Crockett's voice, the diary entry, and the silence after. Over and over. In diners and airports, on living room TVs, in text threads between old friends who hadn't spoken. In years, did you see it? Was that real? Did he really write that? Congressional offices lit up, emails, calls, staffers whispering, shutting doors, locking phones in drawers. Reporters hounded lawmakers in Capitol hallways. Do you still support him? After that video? After the diary? One senator froze mid-step, eyes hollow. We're reviewing the facts. It wasn't enough. Voters weren't asking for statements. They were demanding something else, something raw, human, unfiltered, and they weren't getting it. In classrooms, teachers pulled up clips for discussion. In churches, sermons wove in words like truth and atonement. On TikTok, a teenager stitched Crockett's closing line with a slow zoom of the son's face. Blank. Alone. Haunted. The video had 12 million views in 6 hours. By nightfall, trending hashtags glowed like neon. Hashtag even he knows. Hashtag power is not parenting. Hashtag Crockett was right. Campaign advisors stayed up refreshing polling dashboards. Something had shifted. It wasn't just about Donald Trump anymore. It was about legacy, about loyalty, about the cold, aching space between a father's ambition and a son's silence. And in that space, America found itself asking a question out loud. If even his own son wouldn't speak for him, who would? The jury hadn't returned. Not yet. The room was still sealed. Deliberation underway. 12 strangers deciding history behind a thick wooden door. But outside, a different kind of verdict was already in motion. Camera crews lined the courthouse steps. Live feeds streamed to millions. Headlines scrolled in all caps. Crockett's closing goes viral. Trump team fractures the diary heard around the world inside. Crockett gathered. Her things. No victory lap, no fist pump. Just calm. A quiet breath, a nod to her co-counsel. And then she walked out. Reporters surged forward. Do you think he changed minds today? What do you say to his supporters? Will he ever answer for what you showed? She didn't flinch. She kept walking. Protesters split down the center as she passed. Some applauded, others wept. Some just stared. Phones followed her every step. The sun dipped low behind the courthouse dome. An amber light soaked the steps. Still no word from Trump. No tweets. No press conference. No spokesman sent to clean up the wreckage. Just silence. And silence, tonight, spoke louder than any rebuttal. The nation didn't need a ruling to feel what it already knew. Not guilt necessarily. Not innocence. But something deeper. That truth, once seen, once heard, cannot be unseen. The gavel hadn't dropped, but a judgment had already landed. Not from 12 jurors, but from millions. Watching, listening, deciding. And in the silence that followed, the country seemed to finally understand. Silence doesn't shield the powerful. It exposes them.